best jokes aren't difficult to remember. I've had various methods for memorizing my bits over the years, many of them not very effective. I've stumbled over a lot of words, forgotten many sentences on stage, often the most important ones. So you're kicking yourself afterwards, I forgot the line, It doesn't help much if you come up with a brilliant line and then you forget to say it. It kind of defeats the purpose. It's weird to forget something that you wrote, right? Like it comes out of you and then you can't remember how it goes. That's a little odd, a little strange, right? But I think it's a good metric to judge how much of you is actually in what you wrote, right? Because sometimes what we write can be contrived. We're trying too hard to fit things together in a way they don't naturally go. Ultimately, you're not being honest. You're not being honest with yourself, and you're trying to manufacture something that isn't there. It should kind of just already be there, and you're just relating it. You shouldn't have to concoct it. That's going to be hard to commit to memory because it's false. You're just memorizing a blank series of words. They're not attached to you. They're not attached to anything that resonates with you. If the words are attached to strong feelings in you, boom, you're off to the races. You can pull that out of your butt whenever you need to, as long as that's how you actually feel. You want that, close, tight, honest, emotional connection between you and everything you're writing. You should feel close to it. You should feel close to it. All that being said, what are the best ways to memorize stuff, practically speaking? Because you still got to say the sentences in somewhat the right order, right? Getting the gist of an idea will get you most of the way to the funny, but you can supercharge it a little bit with proper word choice and timing. That's a huge part of stand-up. So once I'd written a bit, I used to try to memorize it right away, word for word. That was a mistake. Big mistake. Don't do that. Because as soon as you take the bit on stage, it's going to change, right? Maybe the essence of it isn't going to change that much, but often it can, and every single time, some of the wording and the order of the ideas, that's going to get shifted around. That's not going to stay static after you take it on stage. You just never know how it's going to hit with audiences until you're in it. And then you got to get creative and play around, and that's how you're going to optimize, the bit in the end. So I don't try to memorize bits in detail anymore when I first write them. Even if I'm really excited about the ideas and I think it's really funny, I write it, I kind of half memorize each little chunk of the bit. I usually try to kind of get the gist of each little chunk and string those together. I do still record the bit again after I've written it, and then I listen to those recordings. Most people listen to music in their cars. Half the time, if I'm not listening to a podcast, I'm listening to my own jokes on repeat. Bit of a recipe for mental illness. Don't necessarily recommend that for comics or the general public, but also based on studies of what helps you remember things, passive listening apparently is useless. So if you just listen to a recording of the thing you're trying to memorize, it's not very helpful. So I should probably stop bothering with listening to me reciting my own jokes because science says it's not effective. However, active listening can be useful. All right, so what's active listening as opposed to passive listening? Active listening, that's paying attention to particular words or themes in whatever you're listening to. So it's listening and then focusing in on the particulars of what you're hearing. So if you're going to listen to your bits, you need to be picking out and noting, keywords and phrases and concepts and emotional tones throughout to try to tie your memory to that. I also used to write out bits in their entirety, which also, according to science, not helpful for memory. You don't want to just sit there and write the whole bit. I still type up my jokes in full. I have hundreds and hundreds of type pages of my jokes because I don't want to lose them. Don't want to completely forget them. Need some kind of a record. But typing them a second time or rewriting them again is not the way to go if you're trying to, get the bit in your head and embody it more. Writing can help you remember though. You just have to be more selective. The same as with the listening, right? So if you want to remember a bit, you're supposed to write out, again, keywords and phrases. So you want to write down core ideas and emotions, but you don't write out every sentence. That's too passive of a process. It's not focused enough to tie it and associate it in your brain in any way that's going to help with recall when you're on stage. So picking out keywords and phrases and writing those, that's an active process. You will form new associations in your memory. Science, okay? Things I've learned along the way. So the best bits aren't difficult to memorize. They should just kind of flow out of you because they reflect your perspective naturally and resonate with you emotionally. They're in some ways a natural extension of you. But if that isn't working for you and you're in a pinch, your best bet to memorize something is to write out keywords and phrases and then practice the bit as you would perform it in front of anyone else. Do all of the motions, make sure you're using all of the tones you want to use as you would on stage, and then just repeat, repeat, repeat. But at the same time, don't get married to the bit, because the more you do it on stage, the more it will morph over time. At least it should. There's always ways to amplify a bit once you're reading the energy of how people react to it. And that's going to vary night to night in some ways. Also, the brain works best for memorizing stuff if you spend 30 minutes on practicing that particular bit, and then you take an hour break before you try reviewing that same information. You can look that up on Google. It's known as the spacing effect. So in summary, what methods help things to stick in your memory? Useful skills for stand-up comedians. 1, repetition. Do it over and over. 2, novelty. Are you seeing or hearing something new? So maybe that's as you're practicing the bit, you're adding in tags or actions for you to do on stage. Again, trying to embody that. So it's not just the same words being said over and over again. Okay, so we got repetition and novelty, association. What else can you tie the joke to in your mind, or can you tie different jokes together so that whenever you do this joke, you automatically think of that joke, as you're going through your set. And then emotional resonance. Does the joke ring true with you as a person? Is it emotionally resonating with how you actually feel? So some things to think about when you're struggling to say the correct words on stage, ideas on how to prepare more effectively. And you can always cheat. I've been bringing a notebook with keywords on stage to help me remember stuff. I never used to do that for years in comedy. It is very helpful. There's a reason comics do it. It's quite nice to be able to glance down at a page and know exactly what direction I'm going in. Should have started doing that a lot sooner. I think I just didn't want to carry a notebook around, which is a dumb reason not to use that tool if you're a comic. Put in the effort to carry a small notebook. I don't know, part of it is I'm kind of forgetful as is, so I didn't want to lose the notebook. You can't lose what you don't have, right? Which isn't the best circular logic, but just get a notebook, right? Write down keywords and phrases of your bits in the notebook. It'll make your life a little easier and ultimately helps you keep working through new bits at a faster pace, which, that's part of the game. You got to keep writing, you got to keep trying new stuff, and you don't want to be fumbling over your words when you're trying out new ideas.